Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjam Bihari Jaya Radha Kunjam Bihari Jaya Radha Kunjam Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Gopijana Vallabha Yashoda Nandana Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Jaya Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Paribra Jakacharya Shautarajata Sri Srimad is Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Jai Durantaran Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by Srila Prabhupada, Canto 4, the creation of the fourth order, chapter 28. Rajan becomes a woman in the next life. Today's text number 3. Kalakanyapi bubuje.
Kalakanyapi bubuje.
Paranjana parambala.
Paranjana parambala.
Bhuta purusha.
Deyavi bhuta purusha.
Sadyo nisarataniya.
Sadyo nisarataniya.
Kalakanyapi bhuje.
Kalakanyapi bhuje.
Puranjana parambala.
Puranjana parambala.
Yaya vibhuta purusha.
Yaya vibhuta purusha.
Sadyo nissaratamiya.
Sadyo nissaratamiya.
Kalakanyapi bhuje.
Kalakanyapi bhuje.
Puranjana parambala.
Puranjana parambala.
Yaya vibhuta purusha.
Yaya vibhuta purusha.
Sadyo nissaratamiya.
Sadyo nissaratamiya.
Yeah?
Kalakanyapi bhuje. Kalakanyapi bhuje. Puranjana parambala. Puranjana parambala. Yaya vibhuta purusha. Yaya vibhuta purusha. Sadyo nissaratamiya. Sadyo nissaratamiya. Kalakanyapi bhuje. Puranjana parambala. Yaya vibhuta purusha. Sadyo nissaratamiya.
Kalakanyapi bhuje.
Kalakanyapi bhuje.
Puranjana parambala.
Puranjana parambala.
Yaya vibhuta purusha.
Yaya vibhuta purusha.
Sadyo nissaratamiya.
Sadyo nissaratamiya.
Kalakanyapi bhuje.
Kalakanyapi bhuje.
Puranjana parambala.
Puranjana parambala.
Yaya vibhuta purusha.
Yaya vibhuta purusha. Sadyo nissaratamiya.
Kalakanyapi bhuje.
Kalakanyapi bhuje.
Puranjana parambala.
Puranjana parambala.
Yaya vibhuta purusha.
Yaya vibhuta purusha.
Sadyo nissaratamiya.
Sadyo nissaratamiya.
Now, if you sing a chant, everybody will have chanted.
Kalakanyapi bhuje. Puranjana parambala.
Yaya vibhuta purusha.
Yaya vibhuta purusha. Sadyo nissaratamiya.
Oh, Garanga.
Go Garanga. Kalakanyapi bhuje.
Kalakanyapi bhuje.
Puranjana parambala.
Puranjana parambala.
Yaya vibhuta purusha.
Yaya vibhuta purusha.
Sadyo nissaratamiya.
Sadyo nissaratamiya.
Kalakanya,
Kalakanya.
the daughter of Kala,
The daughter of Kala.
Api,
Api.
also,
Also.
Bhuje,
Bhuje.
took possession of
Took possession of
Puranjanapuram,
Puranjana Param.
the city of Puranjana,
City of Puranjana.
Balat,
Balat.
by force,
By force.
Yaya,
Yaya.
by whom?
By whom?
Abhibhutaha,
Abhibhuta.
being overwhelmed,
Being overwhelmed.
Purushaha,
Purusha.
a person, Yaha,
Satyama.
immediately,
Immediately.
Nisaratam,
Nisaratam.
uselessness,
Uselessness.
Yat,
Yat.
gets.
Yes.
Translation: gradually, Kalakanya, with the help of dangerous soldiers, attacked all the inhabitants of Puranjan city and thus rendered them useless for all purposes. Please repeat gradually, Kalakanya,
Gradually, Kalakanya.
with the help of dangerous soldiers,
With the help of dangerous soldiers.
attacked all the inhabitants of Puranjan city
Attacked all the inhabitants of Puranjana city.
and thus rendered them useless for all purposes.
And thus rendered them useless for all purposes.
Srila Prabhupada's purport, at the fag end of life, when the invalidity of old age attacks a man, his body becomes useless for all purposes. Therefore, Vedic training dictates that when a man is in his boyhood, he should be trained in the process of brahmacharya. That is, he should be completely engaged in the service of the Lord and should not in any way associate with women. When the boy becomes a young man, he marries between the ages of 20 and 25. When he is married at the right age, he can immediately beget strong, healthy sons. Now, female descendants are increasing because young men are very weak sexually. A male child will be born if the husband is sexually stronger than the wife, but if the female is stronger, a female child will be born. Thus, it is essential to practice the system of brahmacharya if one wishes to beget a male child when one is married. When one reaches the age of 50, he should give up family life. At that time, one's child should be grown up so that the father can leave the family responsibilities to him. The husband and wife may then go abroad to live a retired life and travel to different places of pilgrimage. When both the husband and wife lose their attachment for family and home, the wife returns home to live under the care of her grown-up children and to remain aloof from family affairs. The husband then takes sannyas to render some service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the perfect system of civilization. The human form of life is essentially meant for God realization. If one is unable to take to the process of Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life, he must be trained to accept these principles at the, here it is again, fag end of life. Unfortunately, there is no training even in childhood, nor can one give up his family life even at the end. This is the situation with the city of Puranjana, figuratively described in these verses. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master is kindly opening my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So Puranjana becomes a woman in his next life. So in the translation, Prabhupada says, gradually Kalakanya, with the help of dangerous soldiers, attacked all the inhabitants of Puranjan city and thus rendered them useless for all purposes. So I had forgotten who the dangerous soldiers are. So they're just mentioned a few verses ago. In the last verse of the last chapter, and the purport, Prabhupada says, Yavanaraja's brother was Suresvara, that fever. And Kalakanya, the daughter of time, was invalidity itself. Jara, old age, invalidity. Now, Prabhupada says, combined and strengthened by the soldiers of Yavanaraj, so here they are, dash, namely, anybody remember?
365 days, 365.
No, that's another thing. That is the soldiers, but this is specifically phenomena, you could say. Okay, dash, namely, non-hygienic conditions.
Unclean condition.
Yeah, unclean conditions. Illicit sex. Uh-oh. And ultimately, a high degree of temperature to bring on death. So, prajvara action. They would be able to smash the materialistic way of life. Yeah. Okay, so yeah. And that's, I mean, do you ever go door to door doing books?
No.
It's quite, did you ever go door to door? Yeah. Sometimes you go to the doors And the people open the doors. If they open, sometimes they just, well, well, that's another thing. I didn't think of that one. Yeah, that's a visual shock. Yeah, right. So sometimes you open the door, and the first thing that hits you is the smell, the non-hygienic smell. I mean, it just knocks you out. It's just like, whoa. I mean, it's the smell of, say they've been cooking meat, combined with the smell of the animals they live with. Whoa. It's just a killer, So that's just how they live, and that's, that doesn't do them any good. Non-hygienic conditions, and what is it? What's the other one it said? Illicit sex. Okay. Yeah, the more we, spend our vital energy in sex, then it just, then by the end of your life, you have nothing, you have no vital energy left. And this goes for men and women. So, and what is it? Feverish temperature. Well, I mean, you can take it figuratively too, not just the fever at the time of death. In Krishna book, you read how it goes to 107 degrees, and then it drops. The body becomes ice cold. Just the fever of trying to pursue material happiness, and it doesn't work. And everybody's still, like they say, can't get no satisfaction. Try. And, so it's just, it's so discouraging. And then by the end of it, your body is so, the diminishing returns get more and more diminishing and leaking. So to counter this breeding ground of invalidity, notice that Srila Prabhupada's purport, he goes right to something that we might think, well, what does that have to do with me? He goes right to, he presents the Vedic culture, which we have practically no, experience of, as the scientific remedy. And specifically, what does Prabhupada go to? He goes to the ashrams. Ashrams as spiritual stages of life. So I thought I would bring in something from Shivaram Swami's book, Varnashram Compendium, Volume 1, the Varnas. Okay, so to my knowledge, he's only done one volume on this, because I think his interest went elsewhere, but I'm not sure. I'd have to ask him. So in chapter 30 of the Varnashram Compendium, it's called Determining One's Varna. Shivaram Swami, well, he's quoting Prabhupada actually. In Prabhupada's morning walk in Vrindavan, March 14th, 1974, it's been 50 plus years now. Prabhupada's talking about the Varnashram. Okay, I'm going to make sure this, I think it's the Varnashram College morning walk, but maybe not. Right at the end, he gives a note. Yeah, the Varnashram College, March 14th. That's when Prabhupada drops the bomb. And we need Varnashram colleges, wherever we've got our center. Still haven't even approached that. But so anyway, here's what Prabhupada says. This is what Shivaram Swami is quoting first of all. First of all, Varna. It's Varna ashram. First of all, Varna. And ashram, Prabhupada says. Then, when the Varna is perfectly in order, then ashram. Ashram is specially meant for spiritual advancement, and Varna is general division. In other words, when we talk about Varna, we're talking about discovering, and this also is taught of the Varnashram College, according to Srila Prabhupada, you find out what your contribution is to the world in terms of your work, occupational duty. Yeah. And Varna is general division, just like Krishna says, Chaturvanyam Mayashishtam, Guna Karma Vibhavasha. According to the three, and it's determined by the modes we're in. According to the three modes of material nature and the work ascribed to them, the four divisions of human society were created by me. And then Krishna elaborates on that in the 18th chapter from 41 to 48. Yeah. Anyway, right here in the morning walk in 74, it must be there in the human society or there on the animals. And that's right? That's how we were raised, to pursue sense gratification as the goal of life, like animals. Prabhupada say they are on the animals, but he's talking to people he's just salvaged from the animal, the two-legged animal category just a few years before. It must be there in the human society or there on the animals. If Varna is not there, then this is a society of animals. And when the Varna is working perfectly, then we give them ashram. Varna ashram, that is later on. And now, what Shivaram Swami does is he starts talking about the ashram a little bit and how important it is that the ashram has to be determined too. Readers may take note, Shivaram Swami is saying, that the principle of, quote, Varna first, ashram later, also means that as individuals, devotees should not make plans to determine or establish their ashram until their Varna is clear. One reason is, now listen, he gives two reasons for this. You might wonder, where's Maharaj know this? That's how we do in ISKCON. One reason is that Varnashram dictates that a man not marry a woman of higher Varna, lest compatibility conflicts compromise the stability of the marriage. We're going to look at Maharaj, not just making this up. This is right in the 9th canto. I'm going to read you a little bit about that. I'll read that sentence again. One reason is that Varnashram dictates that a man not marry a woman of a higher Varna, lest compatibility conflicts compromise the stability of the marriage. Another is that only Brahmins are recommended to stay celibates, brahmacharis or sannyasis. Only people who, like guna and karma, are Brahmins are recommended to stay celibates, brahmacharis or sannyasis. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is go right to the 9th canto, because Prabhupada elaborates. Shivaram Swami just gave a couple of sentences there. But Prabhupada spends most of a purport in the 9th canto about this. 9:18:23. Okay, we're going to look at that right here. And what's the context here? Yati regains his youth. All right. Yeah, Yati, old person. Yeah, he regained his youth, and then he got attracted to Devayani. Because he was attracted to Devayani, he was younger. And Prabhu sacrificed his youth. Now, Prabhupada goes right into, this is pretty elaborate. Okay. Purport. According to the Vedic system, the parents would consider the horoscopes of the boy and girl who were to be married. When he says the Vedic system, he doesn't mean Hindu, he doesn't mean Indian, he says Vedic. Veda means knowledge, he means the scientific knowledge of spiritual life that's coming from Krishna. According to the Vedic system, the parents would consider the horoscopes of the boy and girl who were to be married. If, according to astrological calculations, the boy and girl were compatible in every respect, well, that's what maybe because it's Kali Yuga, that's pretty rare. You don't usually get that. I think my wife and I, according to Nalini Khan, were somewhere in the 50s, or maybe 60 at most, compatible materially, you know. And as long as we were both Krishna conscious, it worked. But then, when one of us retreated from the practices, then all the incompatibilities they become very important. All the material things. If according to astrological calculations, the boy and girl were compatible in every respect, the match was called Yotuka, and the marriage would be accepted. Okay, it's a match. And then Prabhupada says, listen to this, even 50 years ago, okay, so he's writing this purport in 76 in the spring. So 50 years, so in the 30s, or 20s, in the 20s when Prabhupada's a young man, even 50 years ago, this system was current in, well, he says, Hindu society. Okay. Regardless of the affluence of the boy, or regardless of the affluence, because that's what they look at. They look at the compatibility, according to Jyotish, they look at the earning power of the boy. What else do they look at? Oh, the compatibility of the families too, yeah. Because when you marry in India, you marry families. Regardless of the affluence of the boy or the personal beauty of the girl, like Prabhupada even said, I didn't want to marry that one. I wanted to marry another one. More beautiful. But he was obedient to his father, and it served him well. Regardless of the affluence of the boy or the personal beauty of the girl, without this astrological compatibility, the marriage would not take place. Forget it. A person is born, now listen to this. A person is born in one of three categories. This is really it's heavy. Known as Devagana, the category of the Devas. One is like a demigod. Manusha Gana, like man, humans, and Rakshasa Gana, demoniac, right? In different parts of the universe, there are demigods and demons. And in human society also, some people resemble demigods, some people are really high consciousness, whereas others resemble demons. Some people vote for demons. If according to astrological calculations, there was conflict between a godly and a demoniac nature, the marriage would not take place. If it was really like, oh my gosh, look at this, the boy is like he's more like a demon, and the girl's like an angel, and the guy's like a devil, forget it. Similarly, now here's where Prabhupada gets into this, what Shiva Swami is mentioning, higher and lower stations. Similarly, there were calculations of pratiloma and anuloma. Yeah. The central idea is that if a boy and girl were on a level, the marriage would be happy, whereas inequality would lead to unhappiness. Because care is no longer taken in marriage. Pratiloma is when the man marries, is when the man is lower. That's really hard because the woman naturally wants to look at her hero husband, right? My pati guru. And it's really hard to look up to your husband when he's a no count and no good. Whereas anulom is when the man is of a higher station. It's easier. The central idea is that if the boy and girl were on the equal level, the marriage would be happy. Yeah. Whereas inequality would lead to unhappiness. Because care is no longer taken in marriage, we now find many divorces. because just based on sexual attraction. Indeed, divorce has now become a common affair. Although formerly one's marriage would continue lifelong. Although the Vedic system also is, you enter into another stage. And the affection between husband and wife was so great that the wife would voluntarily die when her husband died. Like who?
Gandharvi.
Gandharvi? Gandharvi? Oh, Vaidharvi, you mean?
No, Gandharvi, the wife of Dhritarashtra.
Oh, Gandharva. I mean, Gandhari. You said Gandharvi. Threw me off. And we're going to see this again, Malayanvaja and Vaidharvi, and also Prithu and Archie. Remember? Archie would voluntarily die when her husband died, or would remain a faithful widow throughout her entire life. It's getting more rare, huh? Now, of course, this is no longer possible, for human society has fallen to the level of animal society. Marriage now takes place simply by agreement. Dampatye viruchir hetu, it's Bhagavatam 12:2-3. The word abhiruchi means agreement. Okay, we're married. Almost like Vegas, right? Drive-through marriage. Don't they do that? So they do that still in Vegas? Yeah. You can just get your license at one booth and then go drive through. Okay, you got your little justice of the peace in the other. If the boy and girl simply agree to marry, the marriage takes place. But when the Vedic system is not rigidly observed, marriage frequently ends in divorce. Yeah, it's no good for the kids, especially. Okay, now, so as aspiring Vaishnavas, who with Western Malecha backgrounds, we may complain all this Vedic culture is irrelevant to us. Well, I didn't go to the Gurukula, I went to the Asura Kula, right? And I remember in the 6th grade, we were having, with the encouragement of the teachers, we were encouraging after school, you know what we would do? This was in 6th grade. How old was I? I guess I was 11. My God, I mean, puberty hadn't even really set in yet. Maybe some girls, but anyway, I remember we were dancing. We would have dances after school in the classroom. And I remember, this is really going back. Well, you've heard of Buddy Holly? Yes. And the Crickets, yeah. So this is when this was the latest song. We were dancing to Peggy Sue. and Elvis, right and we were, boys and girls, we were just, this is what you do. We were getting trained up, right? To keep doing it, that's why. And then, as when Prabhupada's godbrothers criticized him for letting us call him Prabhupada, and then also letting boys and girls, live together in temples, here we are. And so Prabhupada tried to explain to them that what he found when he came to the West was like from the time they're toddlers, they're mixing, and then they're playing doctor when they get older, and all this stuff, and then they go to school together. It's all co-ed, and so what am I to do? I can't just deny half the human race access to the mercy of Mahaprabhu. He's telling us God. In other words, keep the girls out. Forget it. So here we are, and of course we have not a free for all, but still we do serve together. Okay, but and Prabhupada, we might complain that it's irrelevant, today. But remember the paragraph of the purport. So after talking about this, the Vedic, civilization, the 4 ashrams. This is the perfect system of civilization. The human form of life is especially meant for God realization. Now, listen to what Prabhupada says. If one is unable to take to the process of Krishna consciousness from the very beginning of life, oh, that ship sailed a long time. I came when I was 23. So by the time I was 23, forget it. I've been totally ruined. But, by the Vedic standard. From the beginning of life, he must be trained to accept these principles at the fag end of life. Hey, that's me. Okay. All right, I was joined when I was 23, but still trying to, internalize my identity as spirit soul and outgrow, material desires. At the fag, unfortunately, there is no training even in childhood, nor can one give up his family life even at the end. This is the situation with the city of Paranjan, figuratively described in these verses. Now, I have a question for you. Anyway, there's hope. And that's what Prabhupada did. He found people who had been completely absorbed in intoxication, illicit sex, meat eating, and gambling. And he just, by his potency and his giving us a higher taste, and Prabhupada would tell people that, when he would have guests, he would say, you're spending millions of dollars trying to cure this drug habit, and as soon as they come, they give it up. They give up these things. How is that? And then they'd say, yeah, how is that? Got to get a higher taste. There's something more going on. We're not these bodies, we're spirit soul. And you can begin to access that just by chanting Hare Krishna and taking prasad. Seva mukhe hijivha, the tongue, alao, beginning with the tongue. Tasting and vibrating. Let me just ask you this. Because Prabhupada said, this is the situation with the city of Paranjan, figuratively described in these verses. Okay, so who is speaking these verses? Yeah. To whom? Right, but back up in the discourse. That's true, Narada Muni speaking, but and I had to go back a few chapters to find the person and this relates to what you were saying, Gandharvi, and you had to say Gandhari. Maitreya is speaking to Vidura. And I had to go back to chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva. And what's Vidura's situation? Vidura's situation, he has left, during the Kurukshetra war, he's left on pilgrimage. He's going to all the pilgrimage places. And, but after he's heard from Maitreya, after he's heard, for example, so many things, and he's heard about this in this allegory that Narada Muni's telling Mahishan. What does he's heard? He's got the lesson. What does he do after the pilgrimage? Yes, he goes back to rescue his half brother, Dhritarashtra. That's what you spoke about. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's what we can do. We can learn the lesson, and we can try to, rescue others, even people at the fag end of life. Yeah. So yeah, Vidura. Wow. And there was so much affection, between the half brothers, and even though Dhritarashtra spent his whole life trying to kill him, Vidura just let him have it, as he must have said, "You're living like a dog."
We read all the verses.
God. in the Bhima, in the house with Bhima, you especially try to kill Bhima with poison. My God. So, and Dhritarashtra, he had nothing to lose by this point. Yeah, your teeth are falling out and all this stuff. So okay, so he left. He left. Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's all I wanted to say. I'll read the verse again if you have any questions or comments. Gradually, Kalakanya, with the help of dangerous soldiers. Who are they again?
Illicit sex, hygiene.
Non-hygienic conditions. And the fever, the feverish Prajvara. Attacked all the inhabitants of Puranjan city and thus rendered them useless for all purposes. Well, I saw Prabhu first, even while I was reading, I saw.
Just an information question. Are those the only three dangerous souls?
No, there's all kinds of, well, yeah, actually, no. Because we heard, like you were saying, the days and the nights. Like I said this morning, I pass this lady all the time, and now we're getting into the nice, on my Japa walk, and we got into the nice weather now, and I said, "Good morning, ma'am, such a beautiful day. Yes, enjoy the day." But why is it dangerous? It's robbing us of our duration of life. Yeah, it's a good day when we use it for Krishna, but if we just let it, just like Carlyle, in the 7th grade, I learned this, Thomas Carlyle, one of the romantic British poets. Here hath been dawning another blue day. Think, wilt thou let it slip useless away? Behold it aforetime, no eye ever did. So soon it forever from all eyes is hid. Here hath been dawning another blue day. Think, wilt thou let it slip useless away? So, of course, he's thinking useless means, yeah, life is short, so let's just enjoy. Because he's a British romantic poet. Yeah. So, yeah, the days and the nights are what are the other dangerous soldiers? Remember? Days and nights, I forget. Anyway, no. You had something in mind? Oh, no, okay. All right, Prabhu.
Thank you for that. Very enlightening, interesting journey from the nectar.
But it's kind of an important topic because it's something Prabhupada wanted, and I've thought a lot about it recently. And so I have kind of 2 points. I wrote them down because I wanted to really try to, one thing is that you mentioned this necessity, because I was thinking, if we want a successful world and a successful society, a successful movement, marriage is really important. Like people need to have good families. If you don't have good families, you just have, just miserable. That's what we have, the karmis have. They have bad families. And having grown up in a kind of hectic family, I know how bad it is. And so,
Me too.
why is it that one of the things that I see as a big issue is that, for instance, you'd have someone who's kind of feeling themselves a brahmana, like me for instance. Like my whole 90% of my service is deity worship, teaching scriptures. That's all, and doing that type of thing. I feel very happy doing it. I'm really
Studying
happy. Studying,
distributing the books
and teaching, and I'm really happy doing it, and I feel happy as a brahmachari. But the thing is when if people leave the ashram, then they have no varna. That there's no brahmana varna out there in the world,
Well, if they leave Prabhupada's ashram?
No, if they leave the brahmachari ashram, say someone, has these qualities or these qualities of wanting to study scripture and worship the deity. But when they leave, then they pretty much have to become a Sudra to survive.
What do you mean but you're saying they leave?
If they leave the brahmachari ashram, someone.
They have to support the family.
Oh.
Doing super late.
Well, that's one reason. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one reason Prabhupada wanted us to. He wanted it to be the international society for Krishna consciousness, not just the international soldiers for Krishna consciousness or the international sannyasis for Krishna. He wanted a whole society where all the varnas and ashrams he wanted an internal economy. He didn't want us to have to do that.
Yeah, because then you think like one of the things is that
That's therefore Varnashram Dharma. It's Varnashram Dharma means the another aspect is plain living and high thinking. He wants us to establish our own communities.
there's that Mataji in Mayapur. She does a lot of like workshops on like Grihastha life and Varnashram, different things.
In my
Devaki Mataji.
oh, that okay, yeah, German Devaki.
Yeah. Yeah, I have some of her books. They're really good. You know, really smart lady. We talked quite a bit because you know I see her all the time. But one of the things
I have a special relationship with Devaki. Go ahead.
one of the things she says, I mean, I didn't read this book, but Bala had read it a while back, and he was kind of telling me about it. Is, you know, like a husband and wife, the husband needs to have some superior qualification than the wife for the marriage to really work. And the thing is so much of the time, if you have someone who is maybe superior in one way, then there's insecurity in another way, because, you know, like you have to, in this world, it's kind of a dog eat dog world. Like when we face the reality of what we're living in, superior qualification means someone who can make more money. That's basically it. So if you have someone who can make a lot of money, then people tend to want to, you know, be attracted to that. That'll be, you know, better. But then someone who's more qualified as a Brahmana, more qualified as, you know, spiritually qualified, that's not a consideration, because the spiritually qualified people are the real Brahmanas. They don't really all the time have the facility to make lots of money. So it really complicates things, and it's just something to churn as to how do we solve that, because it's really important, I think, that devotees have good marriages and good families, because otherwise we can't go. And then the last thing is the direct question I want to
comment on that one. That's why Prabhupada said, was it here or this one? It's like, it's good if the husband's superior, but Prabhupada in that one purport talked about a husband and wife being of the same station. It's kind of equal. So, or like I brought up how Brajabihari was sharing in the conflict resolution seminar, his conflict was that he's still taking on jobs even though he's retired. And he's thinking, because he wants to have his wife to have enough money to live comfortably, you know, if they separate, you know, if he dies or whatever first. But his wife is really inimical. And she's saying, forget it, Braj, you know, come on, you made enough money. You have a retirement, and then don't worry about, you know, more and more. And his son's saying the same thing. His son is pretty grammatical too, because son and Nanda Vrindavan and Gopinath, I forget his full initiated name now, they're pretty grammatical. So that they have the same values. Yeah, it's not just a matter of money, it's wisdom and values. That's, you know, when people don't have the same values, it's really hard.
Yeah, and so then the last question is that, so then you hear about Prabhupada speaking in the purport about how, you know, it's ideal, and Prabhupada brought that in kind of brought the Varnashram thing into that his husband should leave home. We see that, you know, our system in the world today is not that, you know, a child takes care of the mother. You know, the child goes to college generally, and then, you know, just to survive, they have to become a Sudra also to survive. And if you want to survive, you have to become a Sudra practically, unless you can make your own business. But that's also, you know,
Sudra in the sense you have to be employed. You have to be
And so then, you know, even to do that, it's still hard to get an apartment. It's so hard to pay rent, you know, that there's no question of taking care of the mother or taking care of, you know, generally the mother. I know in my case, my mom still helps me out so much, you know, and you know, she helps my brother out too. So, you know, because, you know, when she was making money, there was a better economy than there is now. So it just seems so impractical and impossible for us. It's like such a huge hurdle to overcome as a movement. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, well, do you have some answers in there? Okay, so let's hear from Chris.
Well, you said it already. You said it's a society of Krishna consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So it should have its own internal economy. Everything that we need should be inside ISKCON, and it should be on a spiritual level.
Mhm.
And everything that you're talking about, all the troubles in the world, is because you're leaving the ISKCON society and going back to Maya to get your needs met. And as soon as you try and deal with Maya, guess what happens? Everything you're describing, it's not easy out there. In fact, it's designed to smash everybody.
Yeah.
So the solution to all your problems that you're talking about is to stay within the ISKCON society and to put your energy into the ISKCON society instead of dissipating it out into Maya. So everybody's money should be going into ISKCON or the society, the spiritually conscious society, and all of your work should be going into the spiritually conscious society and not going back out to Maya.
Yeah, it's really easy to say it for a brahmachari. When you become a grihastha, it becomes very difficult.
It applies to all the varnas and all the ashrams.
Yeah, well, that's why in Varnashram culture, it is basically based on plain living and high thinking. It is actually cooperative, and it is rural. It's more village. And we're lucky here because even we have married people here. You guys are exceptions because you have your own independent income. But we have people married here and they're living because we have a family business. We have Govindas. And so that's good. That's a business, and other communities can have that too. Figure out. So devotees are hiring devotees.
I think that farm, Krishna Valley, they're doing something very close to, that's the ideal. And they're doing Varnashram, and they also have their own currency at Krishna Valley now.
And they're the biggest hires in their little village. They hire non-devotees to work for them. Yes.
Yeah, this is very relevant. And I can also give you one more example in the main society, which is the universities.
Mm-hmm.
And the research, schools and whatever, if you're on a Brahmana level in Maya, basically you're working in the university system, in the educational system. And if you're really on the Brahmana level, you're supported by the whole system so that you can just sit in your office or sit on your sofa and think high thoughts and philosophize or design computers or whatever your job is as a Brahmana. The system fully supports you, so you don't have to make your own food, you don't have to think about anything, you don't have to handle money. It's all done for you.
Because your values are the same as their values. Sense gratification.
I say that one thing I thought about a lot over the course of many years is that thing I appreciate about the
Catholic and Episcopal and Orthodox Church,
Mhm.
but especially Orthodox and Episcopal, because Catholic priests are always celibate. But at least in the Episcopal Church, like I went, with Hamsa Balaram to his church, and he gave me a tour and he explained how it works and everything.
Mhm.
And he was saying that they have he went through I think 11 years of school to become a priest. It was a very extensive thing,
Yeah,
So it took a lot of training to become qualified to do the things he's doing as a priest.
right.
And then, he's hired by a church which has a board and has kshatriyas and managers and so many things. But he was able to support his, life by being a priest and doing that type of work. And not like he was rich, but he was able to do that. They were supporting him. They trained him, or he went through the training and they supported him. And that's what also the Orthodox priests do. And they have their families, and they generally live at the church. But the priest is like a sadhu, he's basically going out, he's tending to people, ministering to people, doing masses and so forth.
Mhm.
But ISKCON doesn't really have anything like that, whereas like we all take trainings, and Bhakti Vaibhav, Bhakti Shastri, but you take us out of the context of ISKCON, it's like,
We can't even go to the dentist.
yeah.
There's no medical.
Right, okay, so that's because we don't have our own economy and our own, our culture is, we have this goes true individually and collectively. We're practicing Krishna consciousness, but our Krishna consciousness is, what to say, because we don't have varnashram, is wafer thin. We just have this little Krishna consciousness practice, but then it's superimposed on a whole society, which is we can't compete with. You know, it's in our face, it's in our ear, and we really need to deepen our Krishna consciousness by making a Krishna conscious society, not just in name, but in practice. And I'll just end there. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Jai.